Hi there guys, welcome to Attack on Final Fantasy. I've got a podcast where I try to complete every single Final Fantasy game using attack only, but I decided to change it up just a little bit, and I've decided to see if I can beat every single Final Fantasy game using magic only. And today, we are going to see if we can beat Final Fantasy III, the Pixel Remaster, with magic only. I'm Pete, and let's just jump straight in. Okay, so the rules, very straightforward. If I have magic, then I have to use it. If somebody doesn't have any castable spells, then they must flee. If it's a boss battle, I can use magical items to damage the enemy, but not heal the party. However, this is different for the first boss of the game. I've allowed myself to just attack, since I'm not a mage at this point. If I run out of spells, then the boss fight is considered a failure. And finally, in-game boosters are allowed. I can't use any mods because I'm playing on PlayStation, but the in-game boosters for 4x XP and 4x gil are 100% okay. Now, one final note, I will not be going into the story in great detail. I'll hit story beats just so we know where we are, but there will be no deep dives. We open with the party exploring a cave and they fall down a hole and fight the first fight which we cannot flee from, so I just attack. After that we flee from everything in this cave and drink some magical water. Whilst in the cave we pillage everything including 2 Antarctic winds which come in handy very shortly. We fight our first boss, which is a giant turtle. Obviously we can't flee here, so we just attack it until it gives in. The crystal lends us its power and we change into black mages, then we leave the cave. Our first stop is a town called Yor. First thing we do is check out the magic shop, but they don't have any magics that we can use. So we leave this town and go south to Kazus, where we find out that everyone has been cursed by a local djinn. So we have to free them. Luckily, Sid lends us his airship. I return to the original cave, remembering that there are items in there that I can get, and I find my first black magic spell, Sleep. We fly to Sasune Castle, where we pick up a Zeus's Wrath, which is a magical item we can use in battle, and we also find our first offensive black magic spell, Blizzard. I teach Rincewind Blizzard, and I teach Merlin Sleep. Now I can finally do some grinding instead of running away from battles. So we venture to the world map, where Rincewind casts Blizzard every round, Merlin casts Sleep, and the other two try to flee. This gives us a 50% chance we will beat the enemies. When we hit level 5, I decide it's time to carry on with the game, so we head north with our airship to a little cave. Inside we meet Princess Sarah, who decides to tag along to help us defeat the djinn. We make our way through the cave and we come face to face with the djinn. It's here that the spellcasting items I've been collecting are going to get used. Rincewind uses Blizzard and the others use a casting spell. After the first round, Rincewind casts Blizzard again and Merlin casts Sleep. I accidentally select attack for Morgana and Rowena, but luckily Rincewind casts first, defeating the djinn. If any of the other two had attacked, I would have reloaded and tried again. Sarah traps the djinn in a ring and warps us back to the castle. Here, she throws it into a pool and it removes the curse. The king rewards us with a canoe, and after a cheeky nap in the princess's bed, we go to retrieve the airship. A quick flight back to Kazus, and we're finally ready to get everyone some decent spells. I get everyone a fire spell, and those who didn't have it, Blizzard. Sid joins us and asks us to take him back home. First, we need to go back to the djinn's cave and get all the items we ran past. After doing everything we can in this little part of the world, we get a mithril prow attached to the airship and Chris Redfield a boulder. This blows the airship up, but at least we can get Sid back home. It's just a short walk to Canaan, and when we get there, Sid said he's off to make another airship for us. Brilliant, thanks buddy. We also pick up our first level 2 spell, Thunder. That reminds me, as I'm reading the script, I didn't even put in that the magic system is going back to what it was in Final Fantasy 1. However, it doesn't stop at 9 spells per level, it just keeps going up. I'm not sure what the max is because, spoiler alert, I never hit it. In Canaan, we learn about a guy named Desh, who has left a heartbroken girl alone to go on an adventure to Dragon's Peak to the south. Without hesitation, we go forth. The journey up Dragon's Peak is pretty uneventful. We find an aero spell which allows a white mage to do wind damage, and at the top we're taken to a dragon's nest by a dragon. It's here we find Desh, who is suffering from amnesia and can only remember his name. When the dragon attacks again, he tells us we have to run, which is what we do because this is a made to lose battle and you must flee. Desh gives us a mini spell, which is a white mage magic that makes the party members tiny, and we leap off a mountain together, landing in the southern part of the world map. Desh has now joined us on the adventure. I change Rowena to the white mage and teach her Cure, Aero and Mini. In a nearby forest, a little guy tells us to go to his town in the forest to the south, but we have to be small to find it. We head to the southern forest and turn Mini, and then I turn Rowena back into a black mage. Once in the next town, Tosus, there's not a lot to do, except for give a bedridden person an antidote. In exchange, they open a shortcut. Before we enter the stairs at the end of the shortcut, there's a chest with a mithril rod in it. Now, normally, I wouldn't bother equipping weapons because in the previous 2 games they did not add anything to magic, but this rod has a +1 intelligence, so I give it to Rincewind. In the tunnel there are a few enemies, but luckily magic still hits as hard as it would if we were fully grown. This place was a nightmare in my attack only run because I was doing 1 damage per attack. Complete nightmare. Eventually we wind up in Viking Cove. Here we find our first set of Aura spells, which are all level 3 spells. I get Rincewind to learn all of them. I don't bother to unmini the party as I need to be small for the next dungeon, which is Nepto's Temple. Here we are to retrieve a sea monster's eye and return it so that we can sail the seas. This is a very short dungeon and it isn't long until we find our eye thief, a giant rat. It goes down very quickly. After returning the eye to the sea monster, we get a little water fang. I demini ourselves before we return to Viking Cove, fire off a victory cannon and get a ship, the Enterprise, for our trouble. The open ocean isn't as rough as it is in Final Fantasy 1. This is where I can't remember where to go though. So first I wind up in a place called Castle Argus. There's no one here, so after pillaging what I can, I get out of there. The next place I stumble across is the Tower of Owen. Nothing can be done here, I need the toad spell. There's a whirlpool blocking my path to the outer sea, so I have to travel south instead. Down south, there's a town called Tokul. Argus's soldiers have ransacked the place. I'm glad I took everything I found in that castle. Apparently, they came from a desert to the west. In this desert, there's a big floating thing and I can't enter it. I travel even further west and find another place called the Village of the Ancients. I do something very silly. First I rest at the inn, not silly, then I spend all my gil stocking up on items that I probably won't use, very silly. This place has an armour shop, a magic shop and a weapon shop. I grind some gil and I get 4 mage robes and the other aura spells for everyone who doesn't have them yet. As I was grinding for this gil, I decided to walk around the outside ring of the world map. I spot town accessible only by sea and a cave too. Back in the Village of the Ancients, a kid said he'll give me some free stuff if I went around the world on a chocobo. It was bread. We head to a place called the Living Forest. Just fairies talking about a tree. Finally though, I discover the Golden Gulch. Here we get instructions to go to the Tower of Owen and get a toad spell. There's a hidden ice rod and fire rod here. They both give a +3 to intelligence and Rincewind dual wields them. Perfect. Morgana learns the toad spell and we head to the tower. We toad ourselves and hop into a hole. I use some maiden kisses to untoad us and carry on through the tower. Desh thinks this place looks familiar. Halfway up, he remembers he's an ancient. At the top of the tower, we take on Medusa. I didn't realise that Rowena was silenced, so she has to try to flee for the whole battle, but the others take care of things. In classic Ancients fashion, Desh sacrifices himself for the greater good. Back on the world map, the whirlpool is gone, giving us access to the outer sea. The first place I go is Geshul. It's a place I walked past earlier that was blocked off by mountains and I could only access via the ocean. Here I buy my first Arga spell, Blizzarga. This is also the first level 4 spell. Our next stop is the Dwarven Hollows, where someone has stolen a horn of ice. We need to toad ourselves to leap after them. This is another simple little dungeon and the boss at the end is fairly meaty, but not too much trouble. We return the horn and the boss that we just fought leaps out of the shadows and steals both of the horns. We have to give chase, but first a little nap. Just to the north is a place called Molten Cave. It seems that Final Fantasy III did away with the damage floors because my party walks through the lava here as if it were water. Molten lava waterfalls hurt us though, which makes 100% sense. We finally reach the boss and he wants the fire crystal, but we put his plans on ice. Ugh, God. He goes down. We get some new jobs from the fire crystal. None of them are any good to us though. With the horns returned, we're asked by a guide to go and help Tokul. When we arrive, we are ambushed and taken to Castle Hein. King Argus is here, and we're told that Hein took control of his men. We use Mini to escape our cell and hunt down Hein. This dungeon, very easy again, no worries at all. Hein has this ability called Barrier Shift, where he will absorb magic. So what we do is we get our party members to cast a different spell each, and we just flick auto battle on. Yes, sometimes I did heal Hein, but we got there in the end. It turns out that we're in a tree, and it's taken us back to the living woods, so far away from my boat. But we do get a fang of wind. When we get back to our boat, we go to Castle Argus, and the king gives us the Wheel of Time. Sid needs this, so we have to take it to him. But before I do, a soldier tells me that thieves are a master of unlocking. So I change Rincewind to a thief and grab the goodies behind the locked doors here. Because I changed Rincewind to a thief and then back again, he lost all of his MP. I didn't realise this and I went out into the ocean. The first thing he does is attack something, so I have to reload. We give Sid the Wheel of Time and he converts our ship into an airship. Not just an airship, but a convertible airship. One that can go on the water and in the air. We take to the skies and fly off the edge of the world. Yep, that's right, we were on a floating continent all along. The world below would make Kevin Costner weep. It's just one massive ocean with a handful of islands. One of the islands has a temple and a cave, and the other has a shipwreck. It's within the shipwreck that we find Arya, who wants us to take her to the Temple of Water. Here, we find a shard of the water crystal and we need to travel north to the Cave of Tides. Once here, Arya opens the door and we head into the next dungeon. This dungeon is once again very straightforward and very simple. When we reach the crystal, we're attacked by Kraken. Arya dies and we get a bunch of jobs that we won't use. There's an earthquake and the world is drained. We wake up in an inn in a town called Amur. I think that's how it's pronounced, I'm not sure. We have been out cold for 3 whole days. We chat with an old man and tell him we need levy shoes from the sewers. I don't know how we know this or why we know this, because it's the first that I've ever heard of it. In the sewers, we rescue 4 old men from some goblins, and in return they help us to get these levy shoes and warp us out of the sewers. On the world map, we find out that our ship is chained, so we need to head south to Goldor Manor. This place has some locked doors, so I change Rowena to a thief to unlock them and make her flee every battle. But this is where I learn that thieves can't flee, so I've got to keep changing her job at every single locked door. We wind our way through the manor and come face to face with Goldor, not the Power Ranger guy, some other dude who was obsessed with gold. And he has a crystal. We launch into battle only to discover that he's pretty resistant to magic. It seems as though Blizzard is our best bet. However, we are 1 mage down at the moment. I try throwing some Antarctic winds at Goldor, but they hit for 1 damage. Eventually, he fries my little party and it's time to rethink. I go back to the world map with all intention of grinding a bit until I get murdered by some Ligers. So we head back to the manor and try Goldor again. This time, with an extra mage, after what seemed like a long fight, he goes down, shatters the crystal, and leaves the key to unlock our airship. We can finally explore the world a little bit. The first place we come across is a town called Duster. We pick up some rune bracers. These give a little bit more defense. Flying over a castle, we get shot down and land in Castle Saronia. This is in the kingdom of Saronia and it's walled off. It's split into 5 different parts. We have to find the prince to stop a war so the magic shop will open. We find the prince down the boozer, and we're forced to fight 4 gold knights to save him. We take him back to the castle, and in the night the king tries to shank him. The king was being controlled by our next boss, Garuda. The king dies, the prince becomes the king, and peace is restored. I pillage the castle and get given another airship, the Nautilus. This thing is really fast, and we're told it can fly through winds on another continent. Before doing that though, we've got some shopping to do. In the armour shop, I grab everyone a scholar hat and robes. This almost doubles our defence. The magic shop has some magic I already have. We climb Dragon Spire and get a load of dragoon equipment, which we sell. In the last part of Saronia, there's another magic shop. And we get the Thundaga spell, which is our first level 5 spell. And finally, everybody gets 2 light rods to equip. One of these puts our intelligence and our spirit up by 3. In the southern continent, we find Doga's Manor, and after a bit of natter, Doga joins us. We grab a Fire spell, which is our first level 6 spell for everybody, from a magic shop that's being run by a Moogle. I'm pretty sure this is the first time we see Moogles in the series. Our next destination is right here in the manor, and it's called the Cave of the Circle. We have to shrink ourselves to get in. This place is easy enough to get through, and at the end, Doga enchants our airship so it can go underwater. The first thing we do is take an underwater path to Doga's village. This place is populated by black mages, and they each sell different spells, so we grab the Quake spell for everybody, which is our first level 7 spell. We grab everything from within a sunken cave, and then we head for a temple, the Temple of Time. This is where we're going to get the master. In this temple, there are loads of locked doors, and this is when I remembered that magic keys exist in this game. Kicking myself back to the floating continent, I buy a full stock of them. This means I no longer have to change someone to Thief. We breeze through this dungeon and get Noah's loot at the end. We also find some protect rings. With this loot, we wake up an old lady called Une. She comes along with us because we got to get to yet another airship from some ruins. She also gives us the Fang of Fire. So we head to some ancient ruins, and in here there's some enemies that can multiply in battles. Now this is no problem for us because we're using magic and it doesn't happen too often. I'm pretty sure that if you attack them, they just split. There's a shop here and we grab some black robes, which ups our intelligence by 5. We make it through the ruins and find the next airship, the Invincible. This thing is huge and it hops over mountains. Inside it's got shops and a place to rest. Une leaves our party, but not before telling us to go to the Cave of Shadows. After some mountain hopping, we arrive at the cave. This place is relentless with the encounters, but we make it through to the Fang of Earth, and we're attacked by our next boss, Hercules. But it doesn't take too much for him to fall. Now it's time to go back to speak with Doga and Une. Once back in Doga's manor, we walk to Doga's grotto, where we have to find them. Once again, this dungeon is filled to the brim with encounters. When we finally reach Doga and Une, they force us to fight them. After winning, they pass away, but not before handing us the keys to Eureka and Cirrus Tower. The end is now in sight. We fly to the statues that once blocked our path and blow them up, gaining access to the final dungeons. We enter the Ancient's Maze and find the Earth Crystal. After killing a boss, Titan, the Earth Crystal gives us some new jobs, and one of these is the Magus, which is an upgrade for Black Mage, so I switch everybody to it. As I'm exploring, I find an Omni Rod, which raises intelligence by 10 when equipped. I also find my third Protect Ring of the game. There's an enemy I come across called Une's Clone. It casts Reflect on itself, and I worry that this is going to kill me. However, it seems Reflect only lasts until a spell hits it. There's a brief interlude on the world map, the perfect place to rest up if this game had tents in it. Instead, we trudge forwards to the Crystal Tower. In the first door, we find the mirror to Eureka. This place holds powerful weapons, so we head on in. I find a ribbon and come across a Moonring Blade, which is a throwing weapon. When we touch it, we're forced into a fight with Amon. This battle is soaking up my MP, so I have to restart and avoid the Moonring Blade. I wouldn't have been able to use it anyway. Other weapons we avoid are Messimene, Excalibur and Ragnarok. I go for the Elder Staff, but decide against it halfway through the battle. It would have granted me the Sage job, but the internet told me that it wasn't as good as the Mage's job. The Sage job is basically a powered up red mage. Thankfully, in the room after this there are pools that will heal my party fully. There's also the final magic shop, where I can finally get my level 8 spells, Flare and Meteor. Once done, I use an Otter Shroom to leave Eureka. I cannot believe I didn't find a cool new rod. It's time to take on the Crystal Tower. I work my way up and run out of potions. Luckily though, the game is throwing elixirs at me, so I'm not too worried. When we reach the end of the Crystal Tower, we get to take on Xande. I set everyone up to use Flare and flick Auto Battle on. In no time at all, Xande is down. After this, we're thrust into another battle with the Cloud of Darkness. I choose to flee because this is a made to lose battle and I don't want to waste MP. The Cloud of Darkness does kill us, but the party is revived and we head into the World of Darkness. In the World of Darkness there are 4 Dark Crystals. Taking on the bosses that guard these crystals mean the Warriors of Dark will help with the final boss, making it a lot easier. The Water Crystal one is guarded by Echidna. She is brutal and she takes me down, but with some persistence we get her done. The Wind Crystal is guarded by Cerberus, who is far easier than Echidna was. The Fire Crystal is guarded by a 2-headed dragon. This thing's physical attacks hit like a truck and we just about scrape through this fight. Luckily, these crystals heal the party completely if interacted with. The final one is the Earth Crystal and we need to beat Araman. Araman uses mainly magic, which I'm very resistant to now, so it doesn't take long until it goes down. With the Warriors of Dark recruited, we head for the final fight. I make everyone drink an elixir, so they're in tip-top condition, and then we head into battle. My strategy here is to get everyone to cast Flare and put auto attack on and hope for the best. She does a move called Particle Beam, which hits all members, which isn't great, but it's not an instant wipe. It would have been if I didn't take the time to recruit the Warriors of Darkness. The first try we all go down, so I reload and I try again. This second attempt is the one that does it. We take out the Cloud of Darkness and answer the question. Yes, you can beat Final Fantasy III with just magic. Thank you so much for joining me. If you could do all the good things for me, that would be brilliant, but there is no pressure. I've been Pete, and this has been some more Final Fantasy nonsense. I'll see you next time. Ta-doo!